Beautiful. G'day, folks. You're joining us at the old side of the Lark Distillery and the current Lark Cellar Door. It is my honour as Seamus from the Whisky Clubbers to be joined by two of Lark's living legends. One, the founder of the distillery, the founder of the modern Australian whisky industry, Mr. Bill Lark.
Seamus and everybody, good evening.
And number two, of course, the master distiller of the Lark Distillery, the man who made the bottle in front of us, Mr. Chris Thomson.
Hi, whisky fans.
Hi.
It's you're catching us after a robust discussion about roast chicken and how to or not to serve it. But it is with that context that we actually join you to talk about the whiskey here in front of us. So just going to move it a scooch closer for everyone because that is the rare Seppeltsfield 2. It is a incredibly special dram. We're very excited to be here talking about it. Chris,
Yeah,
this has been years in the making. How did we get here?
it's been a long time coming. So we've had a relationship with Seppeltsfield in South Australia for 15, 16 plus years with the wonderful. And so those that aren't so familiar with Seppeltsfield at home, Seppeltsfield has the oldest continuous lineage of port cask on the planet. I can say port, Seamus, because they made it before they made the rules.
Yeah,
So
it's
there
written
we go.
on the cask.
That's right.
There we go.
That's
So,
how it works.
And so they have a continuous lineage of port cask going all the way back to 1878. And the oldest cask we've ever received out of Seppeltsfield to age our whiskey in was from 1878, which is pretty incredible. Now, this beautiful whiskey isn't actually port cask. They also have incredible sherries. So PX, Oloroso style. Yeah, I'm going to call it sherry as well because it predates all that.
Yeah, it said cherry on the cask.
Yeah,
it's a
that's
para
right.
now for anyone who's looking at a bottle that says a para on it. Sherry in Australia now called a para.
Now, I'm
I'd
gonna,
like to
I'm gonna
talk
get
about that
sued.
later,
I'm going to
but-
get sued. at
Yeah,
some
we'll
point.
get to that. We'll get to that, absolutely.
So they have these incredible PX Oloroso, Amontillado casks. There's even one Fino in this as well. But particularly the PX is incredible. So we're talking about oak that's going back, these casks have been holding single vintages for 60, 70 years sort of thing. But some of the wood's like over 100. So you don't feel port into or sherry into new cask.
Yeah.
Before that was port. Before that, it would have been table wine, and some of these Seppeltsfield casks have actually tracked back to Spain for their original coopering over 250 years ago, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah, and look, for anyone who's actually hopped around some of those bonzors, I mean, every now and again you do see those casks and go, actually, that's a Scotch brand from like the early 1900s that's been transported over, filled as a sherry cask, matured here.
Yeah.
There's so much lineage in those casks.
What's incredible is that usually it's really hard to track down those kind of details, like what happened in like the late 1800s. But we're really lucky because Bill was 20, 25 years old in the late 1800s. So yeah, we're very lucky he joins us in colour tonight.
You pleased with yourself? Yeah, you just wanted to bask in that for a moment.
Why do they tit us so?
It's easy to punch up, Bill. It's easy to punch up. Do you
Yeah,
want to have a go at punching down?
I'll let him off tonight.
Yeah, good. Look, it's awesome to be bringing this together because look, Lark is one of the most released distilleries for us here at the Whisky Club, and I think for all the Whisky Club members watching along, they'll know they're probably not the first time that they're seeing the two of you speak about the distillery, but for the new members, can you give a little context that they might not already know that they really should know about the lineage of Lark?
Well, I'd like to ask Bill a very specific question about trout.
Because you don't know much
I've
about
not seen one. I've not seen one before.
I'll
never caught one.
Teach you how to catch one day, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Out the freezer. So, Bill,
Yes.
all happened with a bit of trout fishing. When I started 20 years ago, that trout was 2 pounds. As you tell the story, it's now
No.
5 pounds. Is it?
It
6
was
pounds.
always a 4-pound brown trout.
Yeah, of course.
So for the members that have been following along at home, watching this trout grow bigger and bigger year after year. For the new members, what kind of whale-sized trout are we?
Come on, they're
talking
going to tell their friends. What are we?
It was a decent, you don't know what a 4-pound brown trout looks like. It's a good trout.
Oh yeah, I agree. 4 pound trout would be a good trout if you'd ever seen one. But so why is the trout so important, Bill?
Well, the size doesn't matter, Chris. The reason it was important was it led to a discussion about why whiskey wasn't being made in Tasmania.
Of course.
Sitting up in the Highlands with my father-in-law, enjoying, and it was a Glenfiddich, and we probably enjoyed a fair bit of it while we were waiting for the trout to cook. We just started talking about Tasmania's climate and the water. Everybody knows our water's second to none. And we must have good barley because back then Bogues and Cascade were being exported all over the world.
Yep.
And it just begged the question, why isn't somebody making whiskey in Tasmania?
Yeah.
Lynn said, I don't know, but let's give it a go. And that's kind of...
And what year is that for everyone watching along?
It would have been either 1988 or 1989. That's when the idea started.
The foundation of an industry.
And
it
so
turns out.
like you had the laws changed, but you know you're first inductee into the Whisky Hall of Fame, like in the Southern Hemisphere, for a reason, but it's not for starting Lark. Like I think it's always really important to tell what happened next.
Well, it was all very well to think, why isn't somebody making whiskey in Tasmania? All I knew back then was I enjoyed drinking it. I had no idea how to make it. And there was no internet. You couldn't Google, like I've done for many things, how to make a violin or how to make a double. You couldn't Google how to make single malt whiskey. And there was an odd coffee table book around that had a couple of pages on whiskey and how it was made. And it was made from malted barley, yeast and water. And sure, that's fine. I knew that much.
Yeah.
But not the art of making a good single malt whiskey. You know, how do you choose your yeast? How do you choose your barrels? How do you do your cuts? All of those things I had no idea, but I knew they were all really important. But anyway, we decided to play around with it and discover for ourselves these things. But luckily, having got the legislation changed and granted the first licence to distill in Tasmania since 1839, very exciting day, I'm sitting at home and I'm scared stiff thinking, what the hell have we done? Everybody thinks we're going to be making single malt whiskey. I'm still not sure about all these unanswered questions.
Yeah.
And out of the blue, I get a call from John Grant from Glenfarclas. He'd heard from his distributor, David Johnson in Hobart, that I had a licence. And John said, Bill, I've heard you've got a licence. Is that right? And I said, yeah, it is, John. And he said, then, Bill, would you let me help you make good whiskey? And so we sat on the phone and talked about all these burning questions I had, and we've stayed friends to this very day. And as we got started and we were making whiskey and other people came along, people like Casey Overeem and those sort of people who wanted to start a distillery and wanted help, I would offer to help them, and people used to say to me, Bill, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
These people are going to be a competition, but I never saw it like that. And those words of John Grant were ringing in my ear, and you know, when I asked him why would he offer to help me, how wonderful is that? I said, why would you do that, John? He said, well, Bill, if somebody comes into your distillery and it's their first experience with whiskey, I'd like it to be a good experience. Then they might go on to explore the bigger world of whiskey. And so when people came to me for help, I felt on my own, we're only ever going to be a novelty. Wouldn't it be nice one day if we had a number of distilleries in Australia, in Tasmania, making really good whiskey?
Yeah.
Who knows, one day we might have an industry that the world will recognise.
Look, absolutely. And it's incredible how much it's taken hold over the years. I mean, in the last few decades, there's been first releases from countless distilleries. There's been world best gongs for many of them as well. But, Chris, I mean, you've been at Lark, 17, 18 years?
February's 20, mate. February's
20?
Yeah, I know.
Feels like 200.
Yeah, I'm about to start making black and white jokes about him as well.
You can say 200 because Bill's lived it. So
he knows what it looks like. You've seen this distillery and this business kind of evolve over those years. It must have changed so much.
Yeah, it hasn't. I had a pretty amazing experience. So 2007 is when I started, and I bottled.
That's when I started losing hair.
Yeah, me too.
No, yours was already going, mate.
I was going. So you'll catch.
Yeah,
me,
I'm on my way.
way. Yeah, 2007 is when we started. I bottled our 20th cask ever. So we really were at that point where, Lark was really starting to find its foundations of its identity. 2000 and late 2007 we bottled. 2008 we bottled LD 100, pour cask, bit of citrus, and really clearly became like that's where we should go. I had a really amazing experience with a journalist. Probably about not even a month ago. We actually lined up all of like 20 years worth of Larks, and we were looking at the new range in these beautiful bottles here. Looking at Ruby Abyss, and you could see the origin. It was like Batman origin story, right from that beginning all the way through, with sort of the early 20s into the 70s into the 100, and then all the way through into the new range. And Lark is really, really prided itself on drinkability, its fortified notes, being bold and big and viscous. And all we've really done is tried to extend that and do it better each year, and do a bit of innovation and bring a few more people on the journey.
Yeah, it's incredible because, look, a lot of people that visit this Cellar Door will actually get a chance to see a little bit of that lineage of Lark, and there's actually some of those historic bottles behind you two there as well. But what's amazing is you still see a lot of the DNA in a glass like this that you do on like an LD30 or an LD 100. There is the bones of it.
Wonderfully, surprisingly, but wonderfully you do.
Yeah.
You can go back.
It's incredible, and is that the lineage of carrying on a lot of the initial kind of foundations that you and Lynn set out for you, Chris, or is that like you as stewards of it seeing it through for so long, Bill?
Well, yeah, Lynn and I crafted a whiskey that first and foremost we liked, and we were never going to put anything in a bottle that the Scots wouldn't be proud of and that we weren't 100% happy with, and that's sort of been a philosophy of Lark all the way through. And when Chris came on board and became our distiller and then head distiller, I think Chris, you adopted that same philosophy.
Yeah, I think like the challenge has always been like appeasing. You got Bill and Lynn, like you got living legends, right, to live up to, as well as the Scottish industry, as well as the Australians. And then I'm out in out in retail or bars, and you see how things are changing and want to keep growing the brand and getting better. And I think the magic in Lark is sort of this three-way like trifecta that all has to be ands, not ors, which is we've got to be like uniquely Tasmanian, showcase Tasmanian Australian style. I've definitely got to make sure that Bill likes it. It shouldn't be released if Bill doesn't. We should be proud of that, and we always need to be evolving and moving forward and trying to get better. I always believe in what we call the Alice in Wonderland. Like every distillery should try and get better. If you stop trying to get better, then you start going backwards. So.
Absolutely. Well, we've got a great question here from Craig Goldsmith as well. If Lark could collab with a Scottish distillery, which would you choose and why? And then Craig has also added trading new make and trading aged whiskey.
Oh, okay.
Well, we have done a collab, which was with Glenfarclas to celebrate our
amazing
30th.
whiskey.
Yeah, it was killer, so good. It was so fun to work with, and we love Glenfarclas. I'll let Bill answer first. Who would you like to hang out with?
Well,
hang out with. I'm not sure
Let me just. Where are we going?
There's about 30.
Yeah.
But there'd be two. I mean, always Glenfarclas. I have this relationship with Glenfarclas that will stay with me. But outside of those, I would love to do something with Highland Park.
Oh yeah.
I've been to Highland Park a number of times, and I've been to the Orkney Islands, and I've been there when the heather's out, and you smell it in the air. And then when you drink Highland Park, I get that heather note, honey heather note on the palate. And they have, like us, a bit of a delicate balance with the peat going on.
Yeah.
And I really do like them for that and love their whiskey.
Absolutely.
The Highland Park 18-year-old is stunning.
Arguably a perfect whiskey.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, I'd really love to do something with Lefroy.
Okay.
We can do that. I can do that. I think for me, like going and having a look at the DNA of something like Highland Park. you sort of, as a whiskey maker, you're tasting new make every day. You're tasting casks every day. So really involved. So every batch of whiskey on average that we put out is tasted over 70 times. This wonderful release would have been, oh God, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times as iteration. It's probably why not everyone got their doubles up, right? So, sorry.
Some greedy
That's-
distillers.
greedy distillers, right? And sometimes you just come across distilleries that you like don't quite make sense in the way that you know how they're made, and yet the new make comes out and you go, oh, I don't quite understand how you get it to be so rich but also so floral and get that to work and have integration. And Highland Park's one of those. So I'd love to grab some Highland Park new make. That'd be a lot of fun. And then what would I love to see my cask, our casks, Seppeltsfield in over there? Imagine sending some Seppeltsfield casks over to Highland Park would be pretty amazing.
Well, that'd be stunning.
Yeah, maybe a bit of Glenmoe, big fan. Lefroy would be nice.
Yeah.
It's a long list. We're going to be busy for a while here, guys.
Yeah. Well, we should do it.
Yeah. No. If the members are interested, maybe we can have some conversation.
Oh, there's a thought.
Crowdfunding. We need crowdfunding. That's why.
Hey, we're a club. We're a crowd. We're ready to fund things. Well, whiskey-related things. It's interesting to compare, I think, the Australian whiskey industry and the Tasmanian whiskey industry to that of Scotland, because Scotland, I don't think would ever admit this to many faces, but they must be jealous of some of the raw components that we have access to on this side of the world.
They talk about it. So Lark is really lucky to have an incredible relationship with a number of the large whiskey houses and individual distillers, not just Glenfarclas. And we're talking sort of monthly, and they come look at Tasmania for what's happening next in innovation, how we're stretching and sort of pushing liquid. And we're looking into them for how to scale, but there's no doubt everyone's jealous of our casks.
Yep.
Yeah, they have tried to sneak in a couple of times.
Yeah.
They might be. I think they're very proud of what we've done. The fact that we are making such good whiskey.
Yeah.
And that pleases me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I had such a wonderful experience when I was at one of the big whiskey houses, and one of the SWA board tasting members who control whether or not anything's allowed to be called Scotch. I gave him a little keynote and he said, Chris, I can't do a Scottish accent. Chris.
This is him trying.
Yeah, this is it. Thanks, guys. Chris. I would never pass this as Scotch, but can you get me a bottle? So, yeah. They're big fans, and we're obviously big fans of theirs. So it's great to have a tight relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. But it brings us back to a little bit of what's in this bottle in front of us, and the I guess inception for the whole Seppeltsfield and Rare Seppeltsfield trilogy, of which we're drinking number 2, was to really show off some of that amazing DNA that only Lark can really get its hands on, and that's that incredible spirit and that incredible viscosity that slams the back of your palate and gives a chewy, weighty whiskey, but then giving that incredible Lark spirit the treatment that only Lark can give with these incredible Seppeltsfield casks. Do you guys want to flesh out a little bit of what makes those Seppeltsfield casks so special? Oh, wow. Mega. Hold on. This is a mega question.
Whoa.
Let's go, Owen.
Yeah.
Oh, you read this novel.
Yeah.
I will talk about the Seppeltsfield cask.
We'll
right?
get there.
So it's hard to explain really how special these casks are unless you smell. If you smell them and see these things.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you get them, they look like you can put your finger through the wood. That's how old some of these casks are. The richness and the depth and the layers of what you get from old oak. So when we think about oak, the younger the oak, the more similar the compounds are in there, the more similar the spike is, and the less complex it is, and the more unbalanced the oak is. The older the oak, the more the tannins break down, the wood compounds break down, the more complex it gets, and therefore the more balance you can start to find through the wood, and complexity. And I think what's really special about these casks is we always talk about the fortified that's in there. You know, it's a par of 100. Perfect scoring wine, 12s in a row or something. Incredible, 10 grand for 100 mils or something. And we always talk about that, but what we don't talk about is the fact the actual oak is like no other oak on the planet. Just no one else is filling first fills,
Yeah.
vintage, like port and sherry casks like this that are, coopered over 100 years ago. I mean, we really do live in a really special time for drinking Lark.
Yeah.
I think we're in the golden age. I think we're in a really special time. Yeah, that bond store is absolutely chockers with, minimum 25 years, but vast majority 40, 50, 60, 70-year-old single vintage casks that would probably coop it 100 years ago.
That's incredible, isn't it? And to juxtapose this, and I can hear our whiskey genius in Scotland, Craig Johnston, shouting at me because he's coming from the Scotch perspective and that of Macallan, where they're, accessing what are incredible sherry casks, but it's just not got this age profile that Australian fortified wine has. I mean, it's got to be a cask type that you must be fending off requests for some of those casks from the rest of the world.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning. Like, we're massive fans of Macallan. Macallan's like part of our sort of inspirational whiskies going way back. And sort of Highland Park Macallan when they're big chewy spirit sort of thing. But like Macallan doesn't have access to first fill vintage like casks anymore.
You're looking dry.
Thank you.
You always say two fingers, right? It's two fingers that way or two fingers that way. So that's the question. So what they do is they're buying bodegas and they're making sherry and they're putting sherry in casks for 5 years, virgin casks for 5 years, and they do a wonderful, amazing job of it. But a five-year-old seasoned cask is not the same as a something single vintage been 50, 60, 70 years. And certainly not one that's, keep it over 200 years ago. It just makes our whiskey super unique. It doesn't make their whiskey not like I love us drinking Mac.
No, there's some
drinking
amazing
Mac the other day.
whiskies. Yeah, it's
But
not
this is so
critical.
unique. Yeah.
And the Scotch industry knows it because the few bodega butts that you do get from the Scotch industry are A-grade, incredible whiskies that aren't cheap.
No.
So they're trading on this. The question that came up, and the screen's frozen, so I'm very hopeful that we're still streaming, but the question that came up before, it'd be great to throw up, because these aren't just all Seppeltsfield sherry casks or Seppeltsfield Apera sherry casks. There is a very specific cask breakdown, and we're always big on the transparency on the casks, and I'm going to bring this screen closer to you, Chris.
Okay. Here we go.
Because those are the cask types.
Yep.
Now, can you break down how that actually came to bear?
Yeah, of course. So,
Do you want me to hold this here?
No, Owen, appreciate the question. I love it. Now, there's a little bit of magic behind this. So, when we're dealing with really old casks like Seppeltsfield casks, they're incredibly inconsistent, amazing, magical, complex, but they're inconsistent. So, when we make a whiskey like the one you have here, we make almost double the volume.
Yeah.
So, we basically go, all right, well, we're not in full control of whatever might come out of these casks. And we know that we want to marry these things together. So what we do is we create these component marriages, and then we put them into lots and lots of amazing Seppeltsfield casks. And then what we do is we then go and taste all those casks, monitor all those casks every single day. So that might be 50 casks, 60 casks we're tasting every single day, watching their progression. And what we're doing is we're looking for when they're hitting their peak and the attributes we're really looking for. And then what we're doing is we're taking them out individually, and then we're tasting each one and then blending from that to get the right amount of bottles. And so we didn't set out to get the splits that we have there. We knew we wanted to be big and sweet and fortified rich, so we're obviously going to lean towards the PX style. But actually, we would have seen in the promo website videos me saying that this will be the only time that we can do this, and that's because I'd been saving these casks for quite a while, and I filled all of them. So we filled every single one for this release. Now, we didn't bottle all of them, but certainly we blended the right ratios between them, and we would never get back to this place. What is left over is largely the peated component, which didn't get used as heavily into this one, and is currently my favourite whiskey to be drinking in the distillery. So that's how we end up with splits. I think to go a little bit further into Owen's question, At Lark, we try and taste all of our inventory every single year. So 2.5 million litres, 20,000 barrels. We'll sit as a team, there's 4 of us, and we'll do 100 whiskies, 150 whiskies a day, and we'll taste that, have notes on everything, right? We try and get through everything. We usually won't get through all of our casks every year, but we've got a pretty good program to try and taste everything. In those notes, we try not to suppose what that cask might be. If it tastes like a PX and it says it's an Amontillado, then from our blending point of view, we're always going to treat it as a PX. So we're always flavour-led, we're always taste-led, and that's what's driving our decisions. So we don't have some program or spreadsheet that spits out what we're meant to be doing. We're still treating it at an individual cask level, which actually grew from the early days when Lark was a single cask only distillery. We managed at a single cask level, and then when we had 100 casks in the bottle store, we kept doing that. Then we started marrying those casks, and we had 200, and then 500, and 1,000. Now we've got 20,000. We still try and keep that same practice up, which is a joy. Like, it's so fun. Anyone who wants to come try 100, 150 whiskies in a day, it is so fun. Your palate gets really, really good. We're tasting about 35, obviously spitting. But yeah, just like, it's such an amazing experience to get to learn about whiskey.
Yeah, honestly, it's an absolute delight. And for us, it's an opportunity to kind of dig through everything. And Johnny's behind the camera right now. He's another member of the whiskey team. And I think one of the best parts of our days is always getting to sit down with a fresh load of samples and getting to really dig through it. And it's such a nice iterative process with you guys on working through each whiskey as it develops, as it grows. Does this component work? Does this component work? When you're looking at it, Bill, more from your reference point as someone who started this distillery as a single cask distillery, now seeing it have obviously transitioned with scale, do you still see that single cask that you originally birthed for Lark as a guiding light, or do you more let the blending team lead the flavour into where the whiskey's going to turn out to be?
Look, I'm very happy to leave the blending team to do what they're doing so well. But I still, when I look at a whiskey and I look at a whiskey like this, even though I know it came from so many barrels and so many different barrels, I still look at this. It has all of the characteristics. If I was to write the tasting notes for this, it'd be as if it was a really cracker of a single cask whiskey. And I just think you've nailed the sweetness up front, the character from the casks instantly develop and open up around the front of your palate and then wrap around your mouth. And then for me too, the most important thing is the malt is the hero of this whiskey. Right in the middle of the palate, Tasmanian malted barley is still a hero. I think this has brilliant balance. It has, and I use this word, people hear me talk about elegance.
Yep, that's me.
The elegance of a single cask whiskey. That's not you, Chris. But I would never use that word about to describe. But
it's enough, Johnny.
But when I tasted this for the first time, I was blown away. And I joked earlier, I shouldn't have said it, but I said, Chris, why don't you make a whiskey like this for us?
Which is a great stitch up. It's a great stitch up.
Then I realised you do. But how can we let the Whisky Club have this whiskey?
Well, I love working with the Whisky Club. I think the thing is, right.
No, the Whisky Club is very lucky to have this whiskey, isn't it?
We're going to talk more about chicken and fruit salad, I think. I think what we do at Lark is that I love is that we extend into experience so much when it comes to creating whiskies. We're not bound, and those that have tried the new range, I'm sure, love the new range. I've been secret shopping down the comments, and there's some incredibly kind words around things like Dark Lark and Fire Trail and the other new Lark ranges as well as this. And I think what we do at Lark is we extend into lots of different places, lots of different occasions for different whiskies. There's a Lark whiskey for everyone. But what you're going to see is, I know that we have a whiskey coming up that we've tasted before that we'll release in the next couple of months online, sort of thing, that has a lot of this similar DNA. So you don't just wait, Bill.
Do you know what this reminds me of now? I'm sitting here, I've had a little bit. Do you remember when we had our 20th anniversary? and
Yeah,
Warren
yeah.
Randall from Seppeltsfield,
Yeah.
about 9 months out, said, Bill, I've got your invite to the 20th anniversary party. I'm coming. Can I do you a favour? And I said, sure, Warren, what's that? And he said, I'm about to decant Joseph Seppel's #1 port cask from 1878. When I do, can I send you the barrel? Can you do something with it? And I said, oh, yes, I think we can. He said, I want the barrel back,
Yeah.
which you remember we did
Yeah,
eventually.
I did send it back eventually, but he
You've
asked
done everything you could
He
out of
asked for it. He asked for it for about 6-7 years, and I wouldn't give it back.
What we did for that anniversary
So was it?
was the barrel had still, when we got it,
was wet.
we managed to get about a Glencairn glass full of
Oh.
1878 port out of it. We then put into that barrel some of our very first releases that Lynn had stashed away in the archives she let me have. We put some of those in the barrel, and then a number of early releases.
We had everything. We had every single cask we'd released up until there. We took from our archive and put in.
put into this barrel. And on the night after the speeches, I knocked a bung, I put a spirit thief in and gave everybody a glass, and we said, help yourselves. And we were drinking out of, well, I mean, that's history. That was Joseph's. And the combination of those early whiskies and our latest whiskies and the Seppeltsfield cask, this is what this is.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think like when you put together whiskies the way that Lark does, where you're tasting every single one, you're doing all that auditing. You get to know your cask so well, and you might come across, you're like, oh, there's a really heavily fortified, whatever, or a really peachy part, and you set it aside. And so we're constantly stashing componentry away for like it's a whiskey club day. And so, yeah, I think like as a whiskey maker, I've said this a lot. I love making whiskey for Whiskey Club because you can't always, like if we do a 1,000 bottle run or a 500 or even a 5,000 bottle run for a limited release, sometimes you just can't get the same attributes as when you do it at scale.
Yeah.
And so what we get to do is we get to do the creative, and we get to create whiskies we wouldn't be able to create any other time with the Whiskey Club, because we get the broad volume along with the creative freedom, and to really stretch those bits of the bond stores into new shapes and new colours and make incredible whiskies.
Look, absolutely, and it's an absolute dream to be able to kind of, I guess, act as a collective, act as a club for us, and kind of enable that kind of creativity. William's got a very good question there, and I'm not going to answer it immediately, or I'm not going to ask it immediately, because there was a lot of questions in there about Tassie peat, and I don't know if everyone also caught that jab from Chris about there being an extra peated component left behind from the Whiskey of the Month. But as a little bit of a curtain peel back, we've been on a back and forth about whether we release some of that extra peated stock from this rare Seppeltsfield that was the kind of heavier peated component to it.
Spam the Whiskey Club, demand it. The cask is great. Is one of my favourite whiskies I've ever had. You got to do it soon because I'm drinking it all otherwise. So hammer the Whiskey Club, ask for it by popular demand, or it'll be me and Bill. Me and Bill drinking the whole cask.
Well, that'll do. I'm happy.
So
cancel that.
The opportunity there is, I think, Pete and Lark have always been something that's been really closely associated, but never front of house, never the main stage component. Where
Nor
something like
been.
this whiskey starts to show a lot more of that peat. How has that evolution kind of come about? How have you been dialing up that?
Yeah, look, I think for me, going way back to like Johnny over here when Johnny worked here.
Good.
We're gonna crash the internet. This is Kim Kardashian for the Whiskey Club. That moment where she, crashed the internet. Anyway, for those that are old enough to remember who that is. So 20 years, like one of the processes that we do at Lark is every week we sit down and we have a panel and we taste every bit of new make we make for the week. And the highest scoring internal new make that we make is always the more peated stuff. And so we've been slowly upping our peat level, but it's also coinciding with upping our fortified level.
Yeah.
And so they're in sync and balance. And so we're certainly gonna see some more peat coming through for Lark over the next decade, 15 years. But it's been a slow progression over the last 20 to get to where we are. But we're also upping our fortified port and sherry notes, which kind of balance. We always want to have the peat integrated.
Yeah.
In our core range, and then obviously, special whiskies we can do a bit more.
For me, the peat was always initially about adding a depth of character and a sweetness to
definitely.
the whiskey that came from the peat. And I recognised also early on that not everybody likes a peated whiskey first up.
Yeah.
It takes a while for some
I see
people
no
to...
evidence on the street.
No,
Carroll.
Go, Carroll. Go.
and I also recognise that Scotland, the Isle of Whiskies did peat so well. That's what they did.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be different to that. I wanted Lark to be Lark whiskey, where peat was a really nice influence on the whiskey without overtaking the whiskey. I was always ready for increasing the level of peat in our whiskey, but I wanted to do it gradually and I wanted to do it in a balanced way, and you've done that really well.
We have to have integration.
But it was always about, look, Scotland do that so well, and let them do that. That's great. But let's do peat where it really complements the casks and the whiskey that we produce.
And for the stream, you've heard us talk about Highland Park a bit, and Highland Park is a great exponent of integrated peat. We're both great big fans, and so that's the backbone. Like I always think for the majority of Lark whiskies, there should be peat there, but you can only if you look for it do you see it. Devil Storm is probably the one exception, a little bit more peated, and then obviously if we keep like peat on the stream, keep going. I'm loving it. I'm loving the enthusiasm. Peat's popular. That's very good. I like that. Well done.
Good. Glad you tried it.
Yeah. I really love my heavily peated whiskies, but I love it when people come to me and say, Bill, I can't get any peat on the nose.
That's the best.
And then they take a sip and then they go, oh,
Back
now,
colour.
Bill, now I'm getting the peat right here, right here.
Yeah.
That's what I love.
Now, Bill, you're a surveyor. You're a surveyor. William, you're a surveyor by trade and not a professional maltster. I would like to know about your first peat smoker and how you timed it, because OH&S says I'm not allowed to use the same method anymore.
It's a bit of a shame, but I can understand. So when we wanted to get peat into our whiskey, we were buying malted barley from Cascade Brewery.
Yeah.
And I went up to see them and said, if I get a hold of some Tasmanian peat, can I bring it up? And they said, keep your peat away from Cascade. Anyway, so we had to then work out a way of getting peat into our whiskey. And, it came through a discussion on a night in the pub, and we came outside, back in the days when you could smoke in pubs. And Lynn was going crook that a jumper reeked of cigarette smoke, and she said, if only we could do this with our whiskey. And I said, well, hang on a minute, maybe we can. I've just made a smoker for my trout, quite a big one, because my trout were huge.
It's about 3 meters long.
So I developed that peat smoker up into a bit of a chimney, and we used to get 25 kilos of our malted barley that was already malted, and we dampen it down slightly, and we had that sitting above the peat fire, so there was just enough warmth in the peat smoke to dry that dampness out. But the trick for us back then was, when is it going to be dry? How long will it take? And so I was there with the laird of the Gillies Club, Ron Sutherland, and a couple of his mates, and we're sitting around, and we thought, well, we'll have a stubby of beer while we're waiting. And so we're sitting, had the stubby of beer, and we lifted the lid of the peat smoker, and the malt was still a bit damp, so we thought we better have another stubby. And after the second stubby, we lifted the lid and felt the malt, and it was quite dry. So we thought, well, that's it, 2 stubbies, and that's how we did our timing. So every time we did a run of peated barley, it was 2 stubbies of beer. I don't know why you don't do that, Chris.
It's because we tried, but when we scaled from 30 kilos of malt, was it 30 kilos of malt, about that?
25 kilos.
25 kilos of malt to 2 tons.
That's a lot of stubbies.
That's a lot of stubbies, and we tried. I promise you, we tried. A little bit of Cascade, export stout, I reckon. Yeah, they'll go all right with a bit of peat. So
Now,
wait. No, we gotta ask Bill. Just a quick question.
yeah.
Right. Obviously, founder of an industry. That's not your biggest achievement. Your biggest achievement is founding Australia's smallest mining company.
Oh, yeah. How could you walk past that?
Bill, do you want to tell us about how we at Lark are Australia's smallest mining company?
Yeah, well, when we started, I was encouraged to add peat to our whiskey from the lead of the Gillies Club. And we discovered that Tasmania did have a peat bog up in the Central Highlands, and we could go and buy bales of Tasmanian Highland peat from a horticultural supplier up in South Hobart. I went there one day to buy a bale of peat, and he said, "I'm sorry, Bill, I can't get any more of that Tasmanian peat." And I said, "Well, what am I going to do?" And he said, "Oh, I don't know, Bill. I think the bloke's closed down his peat bog business." He said, "But don't worry, I'm getting in some Lithuanian peat." And I said, he said, "Don't worry, Bill, it's good peat." And I said, "Oh, look, it might be, but it's not Tasmanian. I want Tasmanian peat." And I was sitting downstairs that night having a beer with Ross. You remember Ross?
Yeah, I love Ross. Yeah, what a legend.
And I was telling him about I don't know what we're going to do, Ross. I can't get Tasmanian peat anymore. And there was a bloke having a beer at the table beside us. He overheard us talking. He got up and came across and said, "Look, I'm sorry to interrupt you fellas, but did I hear you talking about Tasmanian peat?" And I said, "Yeah, that's right, mate. We use it in our process." And he said, "Oh, I work for the guy that's got the peat bog up in the Highlands. He's about to close his peat bog down. Would you like his phone number?" I said, "Oh, please." And I remember phoning this chap up, and he said, "Yeah, Bill," he said, "I've had the license to mine peat up there for a long time. I'm about to relinquish that license. Would you like to come with me to the mines department? We'll see if they'll transfer the license over to you."
Yeah.
Not only did they transfer the license over to us, we then secured the Crown lease to that peat bog and obtained the license to mine peat. The funny thing was I still had to meet the mines inspector up there and to get the license. And we're going through a book about this thing. It's like we're Rio Tinto or something, you know. We got to a section on machinery, and he says to me, "So, Bill, what machinery are you going to use to dig your peat?" And I said, "I see that spade over there. And we're going to be using that." And he started laughing, just like that. And he said, "No, seriously, Bill, what sort of machinery are you going to be using?" I said, "See that spade over there? That's what we're going to be using." And so then everything from then on was not applicable. But we were granted a mining licence, as if we're Rio Tinto, to the only mineable peat bog in Tasmania.
So I'll question for the feed out there. Does anyone want to have a guess at roughly what our amount of royalties we pay to the Australian government is? I'll promise you, it's almost certainly. I'm going to get sued by the port share industry now, the mining industry. Almost certainly more than BHP and Rio Tinto pay in there.
Oh! And you're going to get sued by
Yeah. So does anyone want to have a guess at how much we pay in royalties every year to mine Brown Marsh Bog up in the Central Highlands, currently under about 15 inches of snow? Yeah.
While they're trying to work that.
While they're trying to work that.
Do you remember I can't remember how many years ago now, but we had a mob of peat bog experts here in Tasmania on a conference phone up and say they heard we had a peat bog. Would we let them come up and visit our peat bog? And who'd have guessed? Well, there was about 40 of them. Who'd have guessed there's 40 peat bog experts in the world?
Yeah.
But there were, and anyway, they had a bus, and I met them up at the peat bog, and they got out of the bus.
It smelled terrible.
They were wetting their pants with excitement. They were crawling all around the peat bog, digging up clumps of peat. And I went up to one of them and I said, "So what do you think about our peat?" And they looked at it and they said, "Well, we actually think this peat is nearly 100% like Scottish Highland peat.
Yep.
It's made almost entirely from the decayed sphagnum moss that grows on the peat bog." And for me, that was a really lovely thing to think we've got a peat that's very similar to a Scottish Highland peat. It's clean. Yeah. That's where we get that delicate sweetness from.
Yeah, and it still comes through as that nutty sweetness. We got the bids in where somewhere between $1 and $15 across the board.
You're all right. Anyone who's going over about $15 gone too far. It depends on the year and the snowfall. whether we can get in there. But yeah, anywhere between sort of $10 and $15. So for the purpose of a winner, should we say $13.75?
Oh, we've got people in here quoting you. You can't go against yourself.
Almost certainly, I always go against myself.
I remember
so.
when I paid the first royalty,
Yeah.
it was so low, I was a bit worried. That I was embarrassed that it was so low. So I actually
Overpaid.
I told them we dug more than we actually did because I just felt we can't just give them that amount of money. That's ridiculous.
Oh, God. Well, it's a department that's really going hungry these days. Not
But-
a lot of people give them stuff.
But we did talk about this, and they said they just simply were very keen for us to keep
Yeah.
doing this because they wanted to see Tasmanian whiskey made from Tasmanian peat, and they were very supportive of us continuing on
fantastic.
with the license.
That's fantastic. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
I know you want to ask another question, Seamus, and it's important, but I'll just.
Yeah, I have hosted tastings with you before, Chris. I know
Yeah.
your attention span is not built for
Yeah,
this.
it's not great, but there is some big things happening with the Whisky Club, with Lark in 2028, with the inception of the Devils. Now I know you're very close with Brendan Gale, each of you, and there is a rumor going out that that Whisky Club and Lark are bidding for Lark Park. For the stadium.
I've heard that.
sponsorship.
I've heard that story too.
Yeah.
I've heard that.
But Whisky Club doesn't rhyme with park.
It's true. We'll have to do something to do with clubs.
Club park. I don't know. I'm not sure.
That was a worthwhile deviation. I'm really glad you took us on it.
I need another whiskey.
Yeah, I can tell. And speaking of other whiskies, this is part 2 in our series.
This is still only part 2.
This is still only part 2, and there's a grand finale ahead of us. And for anyone in the audience right now, it would be amazing if you could throw in any guesses as to what you think part 3 could be. But Chris, can you give us some teasers on what your team is already working on?
I just want to call out Sean. Well done, Sean. Get on the Devils, yeah? Let's go, Devils. What was the question?
What do you-
Part 3. Give us some
Part
teasers.
3. Well,
Take that away from me.
I'll give you a little top up. I'm not sure what I'm allowed to say. What am I allowed to say? We're already working on it. This will be another one just like this one, the Seppeltsfield, Celebrate Seppeltsfield. Some of their incredible casks. I've been storing and stockpiling casks for a little while. Not a stout cask. I would love a stout cask, but it won't be a Seppeltsfield stout cask. We have to con them to start making some stout. They have some incredibly old fortified casks of this nature. Some ones that I hold particularly dearly and have used quite a bit.
Yeah.
Not always on label, but as a balancing tool. And yeah, I don't know. What are we allowed to say, Seamus? I'm incredibly excited.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that makes me excited about the whiskey that you're now working on is the age of the fortified is not something I've particularly seen very, very old, that style of fortified before.
Yeah.
It must be an incredibly short supply cask.
Oh, this is it. This is it. So, yeah, there was only ever, I think, 80 casks in Australia over the last decade around that existed of this nature, of this type. And so this is the last, yeah, we'll probably have around 50 of those casks left, and they've been stockpiled specifically to do this. And so, yeah, we're excited.
That'll be amazing. That'll be amazing. Have you had any pre-samples of it yet, Bill?
Not yet, but I'm looking forward to it.
I was going to say, yeah.
I usually do get a bit of a sneak preview, Seamus.
Bill comes out for 15 minutes these days, and we're out there for about 8 hours in the Bonster, aren't we? It's good times.
It's a real treat.
Members, it's been fantastic to see. If you do have any other questions, please fire them across. Otherwise, we might start winding this thing up. But there are some amazing guesses coming through. The only
Are we allowed
obvious-
to say it? No.
No, we're keeping it vague, I think. We're keeping it vague. Keep it
Alright,
up
we'll
our
do that.
sleeve for now. The only extra thing is that, of course, we don't only work on these whiskies of the month with Lark. Part of the tapestry of Larks that we have released together over the years is some of those single casks, is some of those smaller drops. And it was a French oak single cask that we released back in February.
Who got that?
Yeah,
that
sound
whiskey
off if
is
you got that.
Incredible. Yeah,
Absolutely
incredible.
incredible.
So absolutely, yeah, stoked with that whiskey. Yeah,
There's
balanced, delicate, neat, tidy. Yeah, deep. Yeah, just about perfect light style whiskey.
Well, perhaps that heavily peated Seppeltsfield needs to become the next iteration of that. Perhaps we're working on a few things
Oh.
that could fill those gaps. We'll start to wind down. We've got a wonderful.
Siren,
Oh my God! I'm not asking a Gen Z RTD question. That's not happening. I love your spirit, but it's not happening.
hard solo cast. I don't know if they age that.
We'll wind down, but for all the members watching along, we are currently joining you from Lark's old Cellar Door and the old distilling site of Lark. And in this special building, we'll be doing things for Tassie Whisky Week as well. For everyone on the mainland watching along, the Whisky Club is doing plenty of stuff for Tassie Whisky Week. I know Lark is as well.
Yep.
You guys both going to be knocking about on Showcase Day?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we'll be around.
Yeah.
We'll be around having a few drams. So yep.
Well, we'll be hosting a Whiskey Makers Lounge up there as well. So for anyone swinging by who wants to have some intimate chats with Whiskey Makers, maybe see a few work in progress things. I meant to call you about this last week. I assume you guys are up for it.
We always have a few little sneaky somethings that can find their way in.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's always there's what gets released, and then there's also what we're drinking in the distillery. So it's usually some combination of that finds their way in. So
Beautiful.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much, members, for watching along. For anyone who did miss out on a bottle, there are a handful making their way out to members on the wait list. If you are getting one, absolutely congratulations. Some of the double up bottles will be creeping out soon, but from everyone here at the Whisky Club and everyone here at Lark, massive cheers from us.
cheers,
Cheers to you all.
and thanks so much for the support.
Yeah, thank you.
See you Whiskey Week.